Welcome back to Star Wars Sublight. Now, just like Ahsoka did with the World Between Worlds, let's dive headfirst into the Sublight Aftershow. Kicking off with a recap and review of Ahsoka Part 5 Shadow Warrior before breaking down 9 incredible details from throughout the episode, some of which you had to be pretty quick to spot. Directed by series creator and writer Dave Filoni, this 54-minute episode opens with Hera touching down on Cetos after Sabine left the galaxy, aboard the Eye of Sion with Morgan, Baylan, and Shin.
I got nothing down here. Looks like we missed the party.
Carson Teva tells Hera that their cover, provided by Senator Organa, aka Leia, is wearing thin. With Jason Syndulla sensing something beneath the waves, pilots comb the cliffside and search for Ahsoka and Sabine. Over now to the World Between Worlds, where Ahsoka is reunited with Anakin Skywalker, who reveals he has one last lesson for his former Padawan.
What's the lesson, Master?
Live or die.
They begin to duel and Ahsoka is dropped back into one of the pair's first missions during the Clone Wars.
This is the Clone Wars!
Yeah, no kidding.
Before revisiting her last mission in the Galactic War, the Siege of Mandalore. Ahsoka comes into contact with the other half of Anakin Skywalker, Darth Vader, and the pair once again start to duel, with Vader offering her a final choice.
I choose to live.
Once firmly back in the land of the living, Ahsoka hatches a plan to travel outside the known galaxy. She communes with a massive Purrgil and hitches a ride inside that whale's mouth. And just in time as well, as the New Republic finally shows up on Cetos demanding answers. But they're too late, and Lady Tano is on her way to a neighboring galaxy. Once again, this show has knocked it out of the park. And after a few shows that have failed to live up to the hype, Ahsoka has come along, and just 5 episodes in, I'm happy to call it and say that this series has solidified itself as one of the greater entries to the overall saga. Now, this wouldn't be Star Wars Sublight if we didn't break down the episode to look at the finer details of that galaxy far, far away. Here are 9 things that I caught during Ahsoka Part 5 Shadow Warrior. Jason Syndulla can prove that Ahsoka's experience inside the World Between Worlds was not an hallucination. It would be easy to write off Ahsoka's experience as an extended vision while drowning, but the fact that young Jason Syndulla could sense there was something happening and that it was located beneath the waves is proof that what we saw actually took place.
I heard you fighting. Yeah, lightsabers. Who are you fighting with?
In the past, Filoni has liked to tease fans by asking questions and providing very few answers, like whether or not the shared experiences of Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Ahsoka on the plane of Mortis were real or not. If that really was Qui-Gon or Shmi Skywalker who came to visit them. I'm glad we actually get an answer on this one, because while it can be fun to speculate, something like what happened in Part 5 expands the Force in new and exciting ways.
No. The lightsabers.
Ahsoka Part 5 marks the first time that we've seen physical Phase 1 clone armor. Those clones in Ahsoka's vision when she transported back to the Clone Wars features the 501st Legion at the beginning of the war. You can tell they made physical suits of armor for the extras on set. And no, this isn't the first time we've seen Phase 1 armor in live action. Obviously we saw lots of it during Attack of the Clones in 2002. But behind the scenes material explains that there was never actually a physical set of armor made for the clones throughout the prequel trilogy. In fact, that was made a reality only last year during the opening scenes of the Obi-Wan Kenobi series depicting the siege of the Jedi Temple on Coruscant. But by that time, the clones of the 501st were wearing Phase 2 armor. It would seem that Anakin has been keeping tabs on his former apprentice from the netherworld of the Force. I say that because his answer to Ahsoka's question is a throwback to an episode in Ahsoka's first half.
Tell me what's going on.
Earlier, when Hera is discussing Ahsoka's difficulty in mentoring Sabine, she asks if it's in the nature for Jedi Masters and their apprentice to be so out of sync. That's when Ahsoka lets Hera in on her history with the Order.
Anakin never got to finish my training.
I think that's why he appears before Ahsoka in the World Between Worlds now and not before. It's just like Anakin's problem with attachment that he would stick around to see how Ahsoka's journey plays out. And that probably explains why he pulled her into the World Between Worlds, to call her out on the comment that he left things unfinished.
I'm here to finish your training.
Anakin has shown previously that he cannot leave things well enough alone. Take for example his need to tinker with Ahsoka's lightsabers before the Siege of Mandalore, changing their blades from green to blue, a symbolic reminder of their connection. part of Anakin's lesson for Ahsoka in Part 5 shows how much he and Mace Windu never really saw eye to eye. While discussing the reality of leadership during the Clone Wars with his Padawan, Anakin reveals that the Jedi were once peacekeepers, but that they would need to learn to be soldiers if they ever wanted to win the war. This is the direct inverse of what Mace Windu tells Chancellor Palpatine at the beginning of Attack of the Clones.
We're keepers of the peace, not soldiers.
It's yet another example of how Anakin and Mace clashed. From the very beginning of Anakin's training, Mace was against the idea.
No, he will not be trained. You are on this council, but we do not grant you the rank of master.
I wonder if Ahsoka knows that Anakin had a direct hand in the defeat and death of Master Windu. You get it? Because Mace lost his one. In visiting Ahsoka in Part 5, Anakin makes it clear that he wants his legacy to be of a keen Jedi Master and not of the Emperor's enforcer. When Ahsoka finally calls out Anakin for his atrocities during Order 66 and for decades of oppression as a Dark Lord of the Sith, Anakin is quick to anger. There's no denying that Vader remains a part of Anakin's being. He was Vader for almost half his short life after all, but his interaction with Ahsoka shows that he'd rather forget than atone for his sins. I believe that's why he appears to Luke as his former self, the young Jedi Master, and presents the same image to Ahsoka when she first enters the World Between Worlds. If you were standing about 1 inch from your television like I was during Vader's final duel with Ahsoka in the World Between Worlds, you'll notice a neat trick when Ahsoka is deciding what to do with her unarmed foe. Anakin's eyes turn yellow and red when he reverts to the ruthless Darth Vader, like all Sith consumed with rage. And when Ahsoka gets the upper hand, she faces a choice: either execute this vision of her former master or spare his life. As she winds back to take a fatal stroke with Vader's red saber, her eyes turn Sith red like her opponent's. But as she pulls the blade away, we see it was just an illusion, brought on by the light of Vader's saber reflected in her eyes. Back in the land of the living now, and Part 5 confirms that Ahsoka is skilled in a rare Force ability. When Ahsoka returns from the World Between Worlds, she returns to the place where it all went wrong in Part 4, and she's able to learn what she missed while she slipped beneath the waves. Ahsoka picks up the star map, which she last saw Sabine holding, and is able to sense what happened next. This technique is psychometry, a Force power that very few Jedi possess. We've seen a number of users in recent media, including Rey during her interaction with the Skywalker saber in The Force Awakens, the main character of Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order and Survivor, Cal Kestis, and Quinlan Vos, who was able to use psychometry to track down bounty hunter Cad Bane. Dave Filoni has made good on his tease that Ahsoka would follow the path of another famous wizard, none other than Gandalf from Lord of the Rings. When Ahsoka fell from the cliffs on Cetos, she was presumably killed, if Anakin's surprise in Part 4 is anything to go by.
I didn't expect to see you so soon.
And further comments in Part 5 prove that Anakin believes that Ahsoka has joined the Cosmic Force.
You still have a chance to live.
Her trials and lesson in the World Between Worlds leads to her rebirth, just like Gandalf when he battled the Balrog during the Fellowship of the Ring, only to return as Gandalf the White in the Two Towers. Similarly, we've seen Ahsoka decked out in grey, be reborn after falling some distance to her doom and then choosing to don a white garb upon her return. Just take a look at this sketch from Dave Filoni if you don't buy it. Both Ahsoka and Gandalf here drawn talking about something they've got in common. It's not just her wardrobe. Ahsoka, the character, seems lighter, tonally different to the stoic, stuffy old Force user of the past 4 episodes. This Ahsoka actually smiles. She's happy to see Jacen Syndulla and seems more aligned with her younger self. Ahsoka's been through a lot at this point in the saga, and she's probably rightfully guarded, but her near-death experience and final lesson from Anakin has forced her to make a choice, to live and fight for her friends. Just like R2 was a companion to Anakin Skywalker before joining Luke on his adventures, Chopper has been sharing plenty of screen time with his young ward Jacen Syndulla. It's pretty cool to see that Chopper has become an intergenerational guardian for the Syndullas. He's been part of the family since the beginning of the Clone Wars. The Y-Wing he was co-piloting crashed on Ryloth and Hera rescued him from the wreckage. For more than 30 years, Chopper has been at Hera's side, keeping her out of trouble. When he's not looking for it, that is. It looks like Hera might be ready to pass the droid down to her son, who's keen on adventure and will need a good droid at his side. Now to select our most valuable player of Ahsoka Part Part 5, this week it has to go to the master and the mentor, Anakin Skywalker, or Darth Vader. His lesson and his final push was needed to bring Ahsoka out of her slump, back into the world of the living, and to reignite the fire within her to fight for her family. If you had told me 20 years ago that we would be here discussing how Hayden Christensen's Anakin Skywalker was the best part of this week's Star Wars offering, and I'm not talking about acting or direction or anything like that, I'm talking about the fact that Hayden Christensen is back in Star Wars 20 years later, and that Anakin is still able to look the way that he does. It's just unreal. I mean, that's magic, you know? Finally, Ahsoka Part 5 sees the triumphant return of my favorite segment, the Glup Shadow Hall of Fame. This time we're doing it Clone Wars style. But before we get into it, I wanted to invite you to join us here at Star Wars Sublight, where overanalyzing the galaxy is our speciality. You'd be amazed at what you miss while traveling at light speed, so why not climb aboard? The term Glup Shitto is used to identify characters from across the Star Wars saga making their debut in live action. They could be a character returning from the pages of a book, a game, or across many animated shows throughout the past few years. Only hardcore fans tend to get excited when they see a Glup Shitto in the wild. So if you spotted this week's entry to the Hall of Fame, then the Force is strong with you. Give it up for Trooper CT-7567, better known as Captain Rex.
Come on, let's go!
Rex is a clone of Jango Fett who led Anakin's forces, the 501st Battalion, during the Clone Wars. He's one of the main characters of the 2008 Clone Wars animated series, where you see him go from military man to fierce defender and ally of Ahsoka Tano. Following Order 66 and the rise of the Empire, Rex served as a member of the Rebel Alliance, and he even fought during the Battle of Endor.
It's been a while.
Rex is typically voiced by D. Bradley Baker in animation, like all clones are, but when it comes to live action, that role reverts back to the original clone, Temuera Morrison. We don't get to see Rex's face in Ahsoka Part 5, but you can hear him speaking with General Skywalker on the battlefield. So welcome to the Hall of Fame, Rex. What would you rate Ahsoka Part 5 Shadow Warrior? What other details did you spot that caught your interest? Thanks so much for watching, and until the next one, remember that the Force will be with you. Always.